Chef Allison Schaaf. She is a food, nutrition, and culinary expert and founder of Prep Dish, a subscription-based gluten-free and paleo meal plan service. Allison holds a bachelor degree in culinary nutrition from Johnson & Wales University, a master's in nutrition communications from Tufts University, and became a registered dietitian at New England Medical School. Allison lives with her husband, 10-month-old son, 2 cats, and 12 kittens in the Texas Hill Country. Welcome, Allison.
Thank you. Welcome, or good to be here.
I know, I do that too. I like say the same thing back. So I've told you this before, but I just want to say it again because I really mean it. I think that what you do amongst our health community is really possibly the most important. I also think teaching about taxes is very important. But if you don't know how to cook and you can't really access healthy food because you just don't know how to prepare it, you're really at a loss. And I find in our culture there are just so many people who don't know how to cook at all, or they only know how to cook a few things, or they feel like getting dinner together like on a daily basis is too overwhelming, which I get, like we're busy, but you have solutions for that it make things really easy. And yeah, I just think that's so important and so foundational. So maybe you can start, just tell us a little bit more about your background and your passion for food and how you came to start Prep Dish.
Yeah, so my background, as you heard, I went to culinary school, but I always knew, I always loved to cook, went to culinary school, but I also knew that I wanted to combine both the culinary and the nutrition piece. And it's always weird to, I always found it strange. You go to culinary school, but they don't really teach a lot of nutrition, and you go to nutrition school and they don't really teach a lot of culinary. But to me, it's like they're kind of a natural marriage there. So, in my education, I kind of went after both and knew at some point I wanted to combine them. But my start was really as a personal chef. So I was cooking for private families, and in doing that work, I loved it because I was making an impact on those individual families, but you kind of max out at 5 to 7 clients a week that I could really help. And as I was going through that process though, I was starting to think like, how could I reach more people? And I realized that with my clients, I had basically formed a system of how to efficiently get them meals. My efficient system was more, I guess you could, it was more for me. It was more like, okay, how can I bring on more clients? And that's like, get really efficient with making their meals. And so as I was doing this, I was like, well, I think the next step in order to reach more people with this is to write down the system that I'm using here. And so that's what I did. I started, as I was still working as a personal chef, I started writing out all my recipes. But the big key for me was this meal prep thing, which is basically what I was doing for my clients, is I was going to their house once a week and getting them set up for the week. And I was doing that for, 2 people a day. So I was like, gosh, if I could just like help the home cook do this for themselves, I could reach a lot more people. And that's what I did with Prep Dish. And, now I'm reaching thousands of people a week with my meal plans. So
that's awesome. So when did you start it exactly?
Gosh, like 5 or 6 years ago. The personal chef company was 10 years ago. And then a few years into that, I'm like, okay, how do I reach more people?
That's great. Yeah. And one thing I really like about, I've only had a couple subscriptions to meal planning services, yours and another one. And what I really like about yours is like, I think a lot of, and you can verify or deny this, but I think a lot of like meal planning services like are sort of like, you just like, I don't know, they're pre-written for you and you just like put your name on it or whatever. It seems like the recipes aren't that good or like your recipes, you can tell like are really your recipes. Like they are tested. I don't know. There's just like a different quality to them. Do you get that feedback?
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is we literally, like I call them handcrafted meal plans, because each week we look at each week individually, we make sure that there's a variety and, there's a seafood dish and a chicken, we make sure each week works together. And we also really take time to look and say, okay, if we're going to make a chimichurri sauce or a pesto sauce, let's double it up. Let's serve it on Monday with the fish, not on Tuesday because we don't want to do repeats. But then on Wednesday, let's serve it, with a flank steak. And so that way it's kind of like a new thing, but you're not having to make 4 different sauces for the week. So we're really like looking at each week and trying to figure out how can we make it as efficient as possible, but also something that we could, serve our families. I mean, I use them. It's funny now more than ever, having a 10-month-old, like I used to use the meal plans and I thought it was great. But now that I have a 10-month-old, it's like a whole new level of like, oh my gosh, I need the meal plan each week to like know what to do.
Yeah. So why do you think it's important to plan our meals or plan out our week from a health perspective and an efficiency perspective?
Yeah. So the key in my mind to healthy eating is having a plan. And that doesn't have to be a meal, like my meal plan. It could be a plan that you put together yourself. But to me, the key is like not waiting until 6 o'clock at night to try and figure out what's for dinner, because you're going to make poor decisions at 6 o'clock at night. There's such a thing as decision fatigue. So you go throughout the day, you have to make all of these decisions. And by 6 o'clock, you're kind of tired. You're not making the best decisions anymore. You're going to go for whatever is easy and convenient and sounds good. Maybe in the back of your mind, you should do something healthy. But if you have a plan and you've already kind of partially executed that and set yourself up for success, and it's like, oh, it's 6 o'clock. Here's my plan. Here's what I'm eating. It's a lot easier. You've already done the hard work for yourself by making that plan, by buying the groceries to make that meal. So for me, really, if you want to eat healthy, the key is like setting yourself up for success. And that means having a plan and knowing what you're going to eat before you get to that meal. That makes
and
sense.
is your plan, is it meant to be made on Sunday for the whole week, or you could do it either way?
Yeah, so either way, so mine does have a focus on meal prep, which means doing some of the chopping and mixing of the sauces ahead of time.
Okay.
But there are people that follow the meal plan just each night. They kind of do the recipe from scratch. So it's kind of whatever works best for your lifestyle, or even sometimes I say it's whatever season you're in too. Like there may be seasons, like when Ivan was a newborn, like I wasn't doing a full prep because, maybe it takes 2 to 3 hours. So I would do 1 hour during this nap. And then the next day I would do the second hour, so you just kind of have to fit it in when you can and figure out what's going to work with your schedule.
Okay, so your definition of sort of meal prep is not necessarily cook ahead, it's chop ahead or wash ahead or make a sauce ahead or something like that.
It's not the full thing. So that way when you get to Monday night, you're not like reheating food in the microwave. You're just like, the veggies have already been chopped. You're just throwing them on a sheet pan and baking them.
Oh, so gotcha. Okay.
You've done some of the heavy lifting, but you're still eating fresh meals.
Do you think there's any kind of risk of increased like LPS when you chop stuff ahead of time, or is it not really a big deal?
What do you mean by LPS?
Oh, that's like a bacteria, lipopolysaccharides that can kind of grow. Like some people say like those baby carrots have a high amount and stuff.
Yeah. We do I try and think through like what are the best things to eat first. So like the seafood I always have on Monday, or with the proteins too. What I'll do sometimes is like, if you're going to prep for 7 days, stick some of the stuff in the freezer and then you can pull it out.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. Cause I do think, I mean, I'm definitely not a big expert on all that stuff, but some of it makes sense. Like to have things, I had a acupuncture client once who would make all her lunches a week ahead. And I was like, you make a salad for Friday on Sunday? That seems like maybe a little gross. But she's like, it looks fine. But I think there's some degradation even in the fridge potentially.
Yeah. So it's kind of learning, which vegetables are going to last longer. Like a carrot will last forever, but like other things, definitely they get a little,
a little peaked. Yeah. So one thing I learned while I did a couple services too, like, what do they call it? Like fresh something, like where you get the box and but you cook it yourself. One thing I really learned from that was to have like your bowls, like your prep bowls. I wasn't a trained chef like you, so I never thought about that. And it makes me feel so much more in control. And like lets the meal sort of, the cooking time out properly when I've chopped everything and put it in its each own little bowl. I really love that. I mean, you probably known that for like 20 years, but like, I just was like, oh, this is amazing. What are some other tips you have for like efficiency in the kitchen or tools in the kitchen?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's sort of one of it. And that's before you even get started. And especially if you're doing like a prep day where you're kind of doing some things in advance, doing them kind of batching your batch cooking, right? So like when you go to the sink, wash everything at the sink that you need to have washed for that cooking session. Like get a bowl. And actually I do just a splash of vinegar because that's shown to be just as effective as, like a produce wash, but I do a splash of vinegar and a big tub of water and wash all the produce that I'm going to chop like that day. So that way you're not running back to the sink and washing something and then going back to your cutting board. So I kind of start with washing everything and then I put it on a towel to dry and then I set up my cutting board. And like you said, get a trash bowl there. I compost. I do a compost and a trash because it sounds silly, but like over time, if you're running back and forth to your trash can or back and forth to different places, it does take up time. So having all of that set up and ready to go. So that way, once you start chopping, you can kind of like get in the flow and just knock it out and then move on to the next thing. So
yeah, I like that tip too. That's one area that I am like a little sloppy in was like with the washing. Like I'll wash stuff in a colander, but that's not really properly washing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the vinegar tip. I mean, I don't know if this happens externally, but in your body, vinegar can help remove glyphosate. So I would think it might be able to neutralize some of that with the rinsing. I could be wrong.
No, yeah, there's studies and I can't remember exactly what it's removing, but like basically the vinegar is breaking down some of the,
pesticides and stuff and the bacteria. Yeah. Cool. I like that tip too. I'm going to do that. And yeah, I like the trash
If it's
bowls.
something that I couldn't buy organic, I'll let it do like a little bit of a longer soak in that vinegar water, just because I'm like, okay, I couldn't get especially like organic potatoes, which are supposed to be, or non-organic potatoes are supposed to be higher in contamination. So I'll give them a longer soak in the vinegar water.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. That's a good tip to like then move them all to a towel just all together. Cause yeah, I will totally walking back and forth to the sink to rinse stuff off. And the trash bowl is a great idea. It's at first it might seem like, oh my gosh, I have like 8 bowls out here. But you're going to dump them all out and then just stick them in the dishwasher. So it's really not any burden.
Yeah, no, and sometimes that's what I'll do is I'll just set a stack of them there and then you just kind of pull them as you need them, but then they're there if you need to use them. So
cool. So tell us a little bit more about what people can find. You have gifted us like a 1-week trial of the meal plan for people on the webinar and Facebook. I already put that in the chat. Tell us what kinds of, I know this 1 week might be a set thing, but beyond that, there are some like additional choices in your meal plan.
Yeah. So when I started out, every plan was gluten-free. I've known that I'm gluten intolerant for the past 5 or 6, 7 years. So all of the recipes are gluten-free. And then I also have a plan that's paleo. And then this year we also introduced a keto plan too. And then we have a AIP, we have 4 weeks of, so those are all subscriptions. So every week it's a new menu of those 3 plans. And then we have a one-time purchase of AIP. So if anyone's doing autoimmune protocol, there's 4 weeks of that. And then we also have a reset / Whole30 compliant plan that's 4 weeks.
Nice. Awesome. Cool. Do you remember any of the recipes in this 1 week trial or is it too long ago?
Yeah, I think it might be, I wish I would have printed that one. I think,
let me open it up.
But the one week that you get, the nice thing is we call it our beginner menu. So when you, it really walks you through our process. So like our meal plans, like it takes, I have one here printed out.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Here's the grocery list. And actually, so here's a tip that even if you don't use these meal plans can really be helpful if you go to the grocery store instead of like a delivery or pickup, is I organize everything by the grocery store departments. So like all of my veggies are together. All of my meats are together. So if you're making a grocery list, even something like that, and then I like to think through, okay, when I go to my grocery store, well, I go to the veggie section first. So the veggies are listed first. So that's kind of grocery list 101. But when I'm making my list, I try and like make it in the order of the grocery store. So when I get to the store, I'm not like poking around my list. It's just like, okay, veggies done. And then I can move on to my meats and my seafood and stuff like that. So.
That's a really good idea that I've never done either. You could even print a little thing out on your own just with sections. Some people might already be doing that. But yeah, so basically your thing is like there's a printable shopping list and then printable, or you don't have to print them, the recipes for the week.
Yeah, and actually so this is prep day. So the second piece before the recipes are kind of set up a little bit differently. It's that efficiency piece of like, here's what you do on Sunday afternoon. So it's like chopping, mixing, make the salad dressing beforehand. And then that way, when you get to dinner time, it's just like each day only has a few sentences of what you have to do. Because this is like day 1, day 2, day 3.
Okay, because you use the prep stuff.
Yeah, so you're
That's
just like
awesome.
sticking it in the oven or sauteing it or doing something pretty quick and easy. So.
Okay, awesome. Well, any questions before I wrap up with Allison? And I know our audience, we are generally people are a little better about they're better about cooking, but we can all get in a rut, which is why I like to mix it up with different services. Just, you're like, oh, I just cook all the same things all the time, but to get like some new ideas, just, I don't know, new sauces, it just gets you kind of reinvigorated with food again. Thank you for coming, Allison.